Today's story follows Claire Thompson, a hard-working single mom whose small act of kindness, paying for an elderly customer's meal, turns her life upside down. Fired from her job for breaking policy, Claire is left struggling to support her family. But just when things seem hopeless, she's offered an unexpected chance to return as the restaurant's new manager. Her journey is far from over. With mounting challenges, workplace betrayal, and even a financial investigation casting doubt on her integrity, Claire's resilience and values are pushed to their limits. Will she prove that doing the right thing truly matters? If you're rooting for her, hit like and share what you do in her place in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, so you won't miss this powerful story of integrity and second chances. Now let's dive in. Claire Thompson adjusted her navy blue uniform, making sure her name tag was straight before she stepped out of the break room. At 38, she had become used to long shifts on her feet, filling orders and working the counter at the fried chicken restaurant in her small-town community. But lately life felt heavier. A single mother with a teenage daughter and an elderly mother, Claire juggled her work and family responsibilities with the tenacity of a woman who simply couldn't afford to stop. As she glanced at the clock, 8:30 a.m., she remembered her daughter Megan would soon be at school. She hoped Megan remembered her inhaler, a necessity for her asthma. Her mother, Ellen, would be waiting at home, watching the morning news and trying to handle household chores on her own. Worry gnawed at Claire as she wondered how much longer her mother would be able to care for herself. The doors opened, and Claire forced a warm smile as the day's first customers trickled in. Serving the community had its quiet rewards, and Claire found moments of happiness in simple acts of kindness. But her family's financial pressures weighed heavily, and the fear of not being able to keep up with bills kept her up most nights. Every wrinkle in her worn-out uniform reminded her of the precarious balance she maintained. As the lunch rush subsided, Claire noticed an elderly man slowly making his way into the restaurant, his worn coat hanging loosely around him. He moved with a slight tremble, and his gaze lingered over the brightly lit menu above the counter. Claire approached, her natural kindness softening her features. "Good afternoon, sir," she greeted him with a gentle smile. "What can I get for you today?" The elderly man, Henry, offered a shy smile in return, his voice hesitant. "Maybe a coffee? And a small piece of chicken? I haven't eaten anything since this morning." As she began to ring up the order, Claire noticed Henry fumbling in his pockets, pulling out a few coins. His hands shook as he tried to count the change, and his eyes darkened with frustration. "Oh, I thought I had enough. I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking with shame. I'll just go." Without a second thought, Claire pulled out her own wallet and swiped her debit card through the reader. She spoke gently to him, careful to keep her tone light. "Don't worry about it, sir. It's on me today." Henry looked up, his eyes misty with gratitude. I don't know how to thank you." "That's very kind of you, young lady. It's really no problem. Just enjoy your meal," Claire replied, smiling as she handed him his tray. As she returned to the counter, Claire felt a small pang. Money was tight, and even a few dollars could make a difference. But she couldn't have stood by and let Henry go hungry. Watching him sit at a nearby table, slowly sipping his coffee and savoring his food, Claire felt a wave of warmth and quiet pride. While Claire had been focused on helping Henry, another set of eyes had been watching. Adam, her co-worker, stood by the register with a cold gaze fixed on her. Adam was known for his sharp tongue and his knack for stirring up trouble. For reasons Claire never fully understood, he seemed to resent her. As Henry enjoyed his meal, Adam headed to the manager's office, a slight smile playing on his lips. Claire returned to her tasks, unaware that her small act of kindness had sparked a chain of events. Later that afternoon, Claire was wiping down tables when her manager, Greg, called her into his office. He was a stern, by-the-book type who rarely cracked a smile and had little patience for rule-breaking. "Claire, we need to talk," Greg said, his tone cool as he closed the office door behind her. Claire's heart sank. She knew that tone, and it never brought good news. "Is something wrong, Greg?" Greg didn't hesitate. "I was informed that you paid for a customer's meal out of your own pocket today. Is that true?" Surprised, Claire nodded. "Yes, it's true. The man didn't have enough money and I couldn't let him go hungry." Greg's expression didn't soften. While I understand your good intentions, that act goes against company policy. We can't allow employees to cover customer costs. It sets a precedent and causes accounting problems. But it was just this once, Claire pleaded. I didn't want to see him go without. Greg sighed, his voice unyielding. I'm sorry, Claire. This isn't the first time you've pushed the boundaries here. You've had warnings about being late. I'm afraid I have to let you go. The words hit Claire like a physical blow. Please, Greg, I need this job. My daughter, my mother, they depend on me. But Greg was already extending an envelope containing her severance pay. I'm sorry, Claire. You need to collect your things. Her vision blurred. Claire left the office, feeling an unbearable weight in her chest. She walked out into the biting wind, tears stinging her eyes. The weight of her world seemed to press down on her shoulders as she asked herself if she had made a mistake. But deep down, she knew that helping Henry was the right thing to do. On the bus home, Claire tried to compose herself, wiping away the tears that had finally escaped. Her mind was filled with questions about her future. How would she manage without this job? How would she pay the bills, keep Megan in school, and take care of her mother's growing medical expenses? But then she remembered the look in Henry's eyes, the gratitude that had filled them. And despite the consequences, she couldn't bring herself to regret her decision. If she had to choose again, she knew she'd do the same thing. As the bus moved through the city streets, Claire vowed to find a way forward. She was determined to provide for her family, no matter how many obstacles lay in her path. 2 weeks passed with no job prospects. Claire spent each day scouring the classified ads, sending out applications to any restaurant or store within reach. Rejection after rejection drained her spirit, and each no chipped away at her hope. Then one rainy afternoon her phone rang. Claire answered, her voice tired but polite. Hello? Am I speaking with Claire Thompson? Asked a warm, friendly voice on the other end. Yes, this is she, Claire replied, curious. My name is James Monroe. I'm the owner of the restaurant where you worked. I'd like to meet with you to discuss an important matter. Would you be available to meet this afternoon? Claire's heart skipped a beat. Why would the franchise owner want to meet with her? She could hardly believe her ears, but she agreed to meet him, hoping against hope that this might be the break she needed. At 2:55 p.m., Claire entered the corner cafe, a cozy, welcoming spot she had always liked. She scanned the room and soon spotted a well-dressed, middle-aged man sitting alone at a table near the back. As their eyes met, he smiled and gestured for her to join him. Claire Thompson? He asked, standing to shake her hand. Yes, Mr. Monroe. Thank you for meeting with me, Claire replied, feeling a spark of hope as she took a seat. James smiled warmly. I understand you recently helped an elderly man at the restaurant, paying for his meal when he couldn't afford it. Do you remember that? Claire nodded, a pang of sadness rising at the memory of the consequences she'd faced for that small act of kindness. Well, James continued, that man was my father. He has early-stage dementia, and sometimes he forgets his wallet or even where he is. When he came home that day, he told me about the kindness of a young woman who paid for his meal without hesitation. I can't tell you how much that touched me. Claire was stunned. She had no idea the elderly man was his father. That's why I'm here, James said, his eyes warm. I'd like to offer you a job. Not just any job. I'd like you to return as the general manager of the restaurant. Claire's heart raced. General manager? I've never managed a restaurant before. James waved off her concern. You have the qualities I value: kindness, integrity, and dedication. Those can't be taught, Claire. The technical skills? You'll pick them up. With tears in her eyes, Claire accepted the offer. She knew that this was her second chance, a chance to make a real difference. And as she walked home that evening, she felt a glimmer of hope she hadn't felt in years. Claire arrived at the restaurant early on her first day as general manager. As she looked around the familiar space, a flood of mixed emotions hit her. She was nervous but determined, grateful but cautious. Her former co-workers had gathered in clusters, casting glances her way. Some smiled, genuinely happy for her, while others, like Adam, stood back with skepticism. Sarah, a friendly cashier Claire had always liked, was the first to approach her. Welcome back, Claire. It's good to have you here, she said, smiling. "Thank you, Sarah. It's good to be back," Claire replied, hoping her confidence sounded genuine. Deep down, Claire was battling self-doubt. She had never managed before, and now, not only was she in charge, but she also had to prove herself to a team that knew her as just another server. While Claire was settling into her new role, things at home remained tense. The long hours wore her down, and her daughter Megan sensed it. One evening, after a particularly draining day, Claire found Megan waiting in the kitchen, her expression a mix of concern and frustration. "Mom, you're exhausted. Can't they give you a break?" Megan asked, worry evident in her voice. Claire managed a tired smile. "This is the break, honey. It's a lot of work, but I'm trying my best." Megan's face softened, but Claire could see the worry in her eyes. She squeezed her daughter's hand, feeling the weight of her responsibility more acutely than ever. Balancing the demands of her job and the needs of her family was a struggle Claire hadn't anticipated. But she resolved to stay strong for Megan and her mother Ellen, who depended on her even more as her health declined. As the weeks passed, Claire immersed herself in her role, determined to bring positive changes to the restaurant. She introduced a suggestion box, encouraged employee input, and focused on making the workplace more supportive and inclusive. She also proposed small improvements to enhance the customer experience, like adding a kids' corner and hosting community nights. Some employees, like Sarah, welcomed the changes enthusiastically, appreciating Claire's efforts to make their work environment better. But others, especially Adam, saw her initiatives as unnecessary and disruptive. One day, as Claire discussed the community event idea with the staff, Adam crossed his arms, a smirk on his face. "Claire, don't you think you're overcomplicating things?" he said, his voice laced with skepticism. "We're here to serve chicken, not run a community center." Claire took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "Our customers are part of our community, Adam. A few small changes could help us connect with them and make this a place they enjoy coming back to." Adam rolled his eyes, but Claire stood her ground. She knew not everyone would agree with her vision, but she believed it was worth pursuing. She felt a renewed determination to make the restaurant a positive space, despite the resistance. Just as things seemed to be looking up, a shadow of trouble began to loom. Claire noticed unusual patterns in the restaurant's financial records, subtle discrepancies in cash flow, and inventory reports that didn't add up. Concerned, she reviewed the books carefully, but nothing conclusive emerged. One evening, after hours of scrutinizing the records, she brought the issue to James Monroe. He listened carefully, his brow furrowed. "Thank you for bringing this up, Claire," he said, nodding. "I'll look into it. But for now, focus on the team and the customers. Let me handle the numbers." Relieved that she had shared her concerns, Claire focused on her day-to-day tasks, but a lingering worry gnawed at her. The weight of the unexplained discrepancies haunted her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Days later, Claire was approached by Detective Lance Rivera, who had arrived unexpectedly at the restaurant. Detective Rivera introduced himself with a respectful nod and explained that he had been asked to investigate recent financial irregularities. Claire felt a chill run through her. She was stunned. Had the discrepancies she noticed triggered a police investigation? "Yes, I noticed a few issues," she admitted, her voice steady though her heart raced. "I reported them to the franchise owner, James Monroe." The detective nodded thoughtfully. "We'll be reviewing the financial records, Claire. I'll need your cooperation." "You'll have it," Claire replied, the seriousness of the situation beginning to sink in. As Rivera left, Claire took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. She felt the eyes of her co-workers on her and saw Adam watching with a smirk that made her uneasy. The investigation quickly became common knowledge. Whispers filled the break room, and some employees began avoiding Claire. Rumors spread, and even loyal co-workers like Sarah seemed unsure what to believe. One afternoon, Claire overheard Adam talking to another employee in the break room. "Isn't it strange how she came back as a manager and now this happens? Looks fishy to me." Claire felt a surge of anger and hurt, but steadied herself. She knew Adam resented her promotion, and she wouldn't let him derail her efforts. Taking a deep breath, Claire decided it was time to address the rumors. Gathering the team at the end of the day, she looked each one in the eyes, her voice calm but resolute. "I know you've heard about the investigation. I want to assure you that I reported the discrepancies myself and am cooperating fully. I believe in honesty and transparency, and that's how I intend to manage this restaurant. I hope you'll trust me as we move forward." The room was quiet, but Claire sensed a shift. Some employees nodded, reassured by her words. Others, like Adam, remained skeptical, but Claire felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was determined to maintain her integrity, no matter the challenges. As the pressure mounted at work, Claire found solace in her family. One evening, she confided in her mother, Ellen, who listened patiently. "Mom, I feel like everything is falling apart. I just wanted to do good, but now I'm in the middle of an investigation." Ellen squeezed her daughter's hand, her gaze warm and reassuring. "Claire, you've always done what's right. You have a good heart, and that's what matters. This will pass, and you'll come out stronger for it." Her mother's words were a balm to her weary spirit, and at home, Megan's unwavering belief in her mother kept her going. Claire realized that no matter how heavy the burden, she was not alone. Her family was her rock, and their faith in her gave her strength. Despite the challenges, Claire refused to let the investigation dampen her resolve. She worked tirelessly, leading the team with compassion, holding morale meetings, and finding small ways to encourage employees. Little by little, Claire won back the trust of her team, especially Sarah, who expressed her support after witnessing Claire's dedication. One evening, after the restaurant had closed, Sarah approached Claire. "I just want you to know, Claire, that I believe in you. You've changed a lot of things around here, and it's for the better." Claire's eyes welled up with gratitude. "Thank you, Sarah. That means more than you know." Buoyed by Sarah's words, Claire felt a renewed sense of purpose. The restaurant was not just a job, it was her chance to make a real difference. She resolved to press on, to hold her head high, and to face whatever came her way. With Claire's determination to maintain integrity and positivity, the restaurant began to see small improvements in team morale. Claire frequently joined her team on the service line, side by side with servers, filling orders, and handling customer requests. One particular lunch rush, when a short staff and a delay in deliveries brought things to a breaking point. Claire rolled up her sleeves and dove into the thick of it, ensuring orders went out quickly and smoothly. As she passed by, Adam raised an eyebrow, muttering under his breath, "You're the manager, not a server, Claire." Claire simply smiled. "A team is only as strong as its weakest link, Adam. Today, that's me on the line." She held her ground, turning the tense moment into an example of leadership. Gradually, the team began to warm up to her, respecting her hands-on approach. The small victories, like her ability to rally the team, helped restore some of Claire's confidence. Claire's next focus was on formalizing some of the changes she had already introduced. She launched a monthly Employee Appreciation Day, complete with small rewards for team members who went above and beyond. Claire also worked to improve scheduling flexibility, understanding that several employees were juggling work, studies, and family obligations. Though most of the team welcomed these changes, some, like Adam, resisted. Adam was vocal about his frustration, complaining that Claire's ideas were just window dressing. Claire held her composure, choosing not to engage in direct confrontation. Instead, she let the results of her changes speak for themselves. Customer satisfaction began to increase, and regular patrons complimented the positive atmosphere, which made the restaurant feel more like a community hub than a fast food chain. Encouraged by the positive feedback, Claire organized small events, like family nights and book donation drives, that were embraced by the community and garnered praise from her superiors. The situation took a serious turn one Friday evening when Claire was closing out the books for the week. Despite her best efforts to manage the budget, she noticed another glaring discrepancy in the financial records. Unease gnawed at her. This was beyond what she could address on her own. She reported her concerns to James Monroe, the franchise owner, who agreed to escalate the matter. Later that week, Detective Rivera returned, this time requesting a detailed audit of the restaurant's finances. The audit sent shockwaves through the staff, with whispers circulating that something big was being hidden. Adam's comments became increasingly pointed, hinting that Claire's actions might be driven by ulterior motives. Though Claire remained professional, her patience began to wear thin. The stress of running the restaurant and facing scrutiny over the finances weighed on her, and she felt the burden of leading her team through an unpredictable storm. The tension with Adam finally reached a breaking point during a staff meeting. Adam challenged Claire openly, accusing her of playing favorites and putting on a show for management. His tone was sarcastic, his words sharp. "Why don't you tell us what's really going on with the money, Claire?" he sneered. "I bet all this extra help is just to cover something up." Claire took a deep breath, feeling her hands tremble but maintaining her calm. "Adam, if you have concerns, I'd be more than happy to discuss them professionally," she replied, her voice steady. "But throwing around accusations helps no one. I expect every member of this team to work together respectfully." Adam scoffed, but the room was silent. Claire knew she couldn't allow toxic attitudes to fester within the team. She made a mental note to speak with James about setting firmer boundaries on conduct in the workplace. Amid the rising tension, Claire found unexpected support. Sarah, the loyal cashier who had admired Claire from the beginning, began rallying the other staff members, reminding them of Claire's positive changes and the supportive environment she had created. "Look," Sarah said one day during a break, "I know things are tough right now, but Claire's done a lot of good here. She's been fair and transparent, and that's something we all benefit from." The team's morale began to stabilize, and Claire felt a deep sense of gratitude for Sarah's loyalty. It was a reminder that her efforts were not in vain, and that despite the pressure, her values resonated with those who saw the positive impact of her leadership. One busy Saturday, an electrical fault knocked out several kitchen machines during peak hours. Customers lined up, and tensions flared as the team scrambled to handle orders with half the kitchen operational. Claire stayed calm, directing team members to prioritize orders, issuing coupons for delayed meals, and personally apologizing to customers. Halfway through the chaos, Claire caught sight of Adam's subtle smirk as he lingered near the broken appliances, apparently unfazed by the situation. When the technician arrived later and reported that the equipment had been tampered with, Claire's suspicions grew. While she had no hard evidence, she suspected Adam's involvement. The incident pushed Claire to a crossroads. She couldn't allow unchecked negativity to jeopardize the restaurant's hard-won progress. That evening, Claire met with James Monroe to discuss the challenges and her concerns about Adam's behavior. She explained the events surrounding the broken appliances and the impact his hostility had on team morale. James listened attentively. "Claire, I admire the way you've handled these challenges. I know Adam has been difficult, but I also know your leadership has had a positive effect on the rest of the team. I'll look into his conduct and the equipment issue, but in the meantime, keep focusing on what you're doing. You're making a difference here." Relieved by James's support, Claire felt a renewed sense of purpose. His encouragement reminded her that she wasn't facing these challenges alone. Determined to move forward, Claire organized a community night, inviting local families for a fun, low-cost meal and activities for kids. She created a mini reading corner with donated books, encouraged kids to draw on craft paper placemats, and even set up a station where they could decorate their own dessert. The event was a success, with customers expressing their gratitude and surprise at the family-oriented changes. By the end of the night, the restaurant was filled with laughter and warmth, and Claire knew that the effort was worth it. She saw that despite the recent challenges, the community valued the welcoming environment she had worked hard to create. A few days later, while reviewing security footage from the day of the kitchen incident, Claire noticed something strange. Adam had been lingering around the appliances shortly before they failed. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Claire reported her findings to James and the technician. That evening, James confronted Adam, who at first denied any involvement. But when faced with the evidence, Adam finally admitted to tampering with the equipment in a bid to disrupt operations and undermine Claire's leadership. Adam was dismissed from the restaurant, and though Claire was relieved, she felt a deep sadness over the situation. She had always hoped to inspire her team and create a supportive work environment. This incident was a painful reminder of how difficult leadership could be. After Adam's departure, the restaurant's atmosphere brightened. The team, finally free of Adam's toxic influence, began working together with a newfound sense of unity. Claire noticed the change and felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She realized that, despite the setbacks, her efforts had brought the team closer and strengthened their resilience. James met with Claire, acknowledging her resilience. "You've handled this with grace, Claire. I knew I made the right choice putting you in charge." Claire thanked him, feeling a renewed sense of confidence. Despite the challenges she had faced, Claire knew she was on the right path. With the investigation wrapped up and the restaurant's operations stabilized, Claire focused on building a solid foundation for her team. She worked to implement fair policies, promote open communication, and foster a collaborative atmosphere. Claire continued organizing community events, enhancing the restaurant's role as a cherished local spot. Her hard work paid off. Community members started recommending the restaurant to others, praising not just the food but the friendly, welcoming environment Claire had created. The restaurant's reputation grew, and even James remarked on the positive changes. Claire's journey wasn't over, but as she looked around at her thriving team and loyal customers, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The road had been hard, but each challenge had made her stronger. She had faced her fears, confronted opposition, and stayed true to her values. Just as Claire thought things were settling, a new shock hit. The franchise headquarters sent a representative, Paula Harris, to conduct a formal audit based on lingering concerns raised by Detective Rivera's investigation. Paula, a meticulous accountant with a stern disposition, requested access to every financial document from the past 3 years. As Paula combed through the records, Claire's unease grew. She had reviewed the books carefully in her role as manager, but the representative's detailed questions began to uncover inconsistencies that hadn't surfaced before. Claire stayed cooperative, but as she watched Paula jot down notes with a serious expression, doubt crept in. The investigation seemed to be leading somewhere she hadn't anticipated. When Paula finally completed the audit, she called Claire and James into a private meeting at the restaurant. James, usually upbeat and supportive, wore a look of concern as he joined them. "After a thorough review," Paula began, her tone unyielding, "we have identified financial discrepancies that appear to go back several years. There's evidence suggesting that funds may have been siphoned from the business." Claire felt the blood drain from her face. She turned to James, her voice barely a whisper. "James, I thought the discrepancies were minor. I reported them when I noticed." James nodded, his own face ashen. "Claire, I had no idea the problem ran this deep either." "Paula, are you certain?" Paula's expression remained firm. "Yes, and given Claire's current role, she's now responsible for resolving this, despite the fact that it appears to have begun before her management." The weight of the words hit Claire like a punch to the gut. As the franchise owner, James was technically liable for the losses, but since Claire was in charge of operations, she too would face scrutiny. "What does this mean for me?" Claire asked, her voice shaking. Paula looked between Claire and James. "This is now a serious corporate issue, and a report will be filed with headquarters. Until this matter is fully resolved, Claire, you will be on indefinite suspension." The words echoed painfully. Claire's dedication, the hours of work, the sleepless nights. It all felt like it was slipping away in a single moment. Leaving the restaurant that evening, Claire felt numb. She knew she had to tell Megan and Ellen the truth about what had happened. But the weight of disappointment and uncertainty made it hard to face them. When she got home, Megan immediately sensed something was wrong. "Mom, what happened?" Megan asked, her eyes wide with worry. Claire hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Megan, I've been suspended from work. There's an investigation into the restaurant's finances. They think there may have been losses that go back before I was manager." Ellen put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Oh, Claire, I'm so sorry. This isn't fair after all you've done." Claire managed a small, sad smile. "I just don't know what will happen next. I thought I could change things, but now, I'm not so sure." Megan wrapped her arms around her mother. "You'll get through this, Mom. You've done the right thing every step of the way, and we believe in you." Their support brought Claire to tears, and she felt a spark of resilience reignite within her. She promised herself that no matter how bleak things seemed, she would fight to clear her name. News of the suspension quickly spread through the community, and as Claire tried to go about her daily routine, she felt the sting of judgmental glances and whispers. Loyal customers stopped reaching out, and some friends grew distant, unsure of her innocence. One afternoon, Claire ran into Sarah at the grocery store. Sarah's face brightened when she saw Claire, and she offered a hug. "I heard what happened, Claire. I'm so sorry. I can't believe they'd blame you for this." Claire gave a small nod, grateful for Sarah's support. "Thank you, Sarah. It's been difficult. I'm not sure how to prove I wasn't responsible." "Is there anything I can do to help?" Sarah asked. Claire hesitated, then shook her head. "Not right now, but your support means more than you know." Knowing that at least one person believed in her restored some of her courage. She realized that her journey wasn't over, and if she had any chance of getting back what she'd lost, she would need to dig deeper into the issue herself. Determined to get to the bottom of the situation, Claire spent days poring over the financial records she'd saved, determined to find any evidence that might help exonerate her. She soon uncovered a pattern of subtle manipulations, small amounts siphoned away, meticulously hidden in the records. Her suspicions turned to former employees, particularly the previous manager, whose bookkeeping had always seemed overly complicated. Driven by her findings, Claire approached Detective Rivera with the information. Detective Rivera listened carefully, his expression thoughtful. "Claire, this does change things," he said. "If we can link these discrepancies to a specific individual, it could absolve you of any wrongdoing. Leave this with me, and I'll do what I can to pursue it." Claire left his office feeling a glimmer of hope. She realized she wasn't powerless, and with Rivera's help, there was a chance she could clear her name and prove her dedication had never wavered. While the investigation continued, Claire experienced the harsh reality of how quickly public opinion could shift. Some customers stopped supporting the restaurant, worried by the allegations. Others, however, defended Claire, pointing out the positive changes she had implemented and the good she'd done for the community. One evening, as Claire walked through the park, an older woman approached her. "You know, Claire, I don't believe for a second that you're guilty. You've been nothing but kind to all of us." Claire was touched by the woman's words, and they bolstered her spirit. "Thank you. That means a lot. I'm doing everything I can to clear things up." The woman squeezed her hand. "You've made this place feel like home. Don't let them take that away from you." Encouraged by these small moments of support, Claire felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her belief in her own integrity kept her going, and she held on to the hope that, in the end, the truth would prevail. Days turned into weeks, and Claire's suspension continued as the investigation dragged on. One afternoon, James called her, sounding hesitant. "Claire, I want you to know I've spoken with headquarters, and they've offered me a chance to quietly reinstate you without any public statements." "It wouldn't be the same role, but it's something." Claire was taken aback, conflicted. Accepting a lower position would mean a steady income and the possibility of rebuilding. But she knew that, by taking this route, her innocence would never be fully proven, and the shadow of suspicion would always linger. After a long pause, Claire answered, her voice firm. "James, I appreciate the offer, but I need to clear my name. I can't come back without the truth being out there. It wouldn't be fair to me, my family, or this community." James sighed but seemed to understand. "I respect that, Claire. You've always been true to your values, and I admire that. I'll continue supporting you however I can." Claire felt a surge of resolve. Her decision meant more uncertainty, but it also meant staying true to her principles. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Detective Rivera called Claire with news. "Claire, we've identified a former employee responsible for the discrepancies. They're prepared to admit to the siphoning, and it clears you of any involvement." Overwhelmed with relief, Claire thanked him, her heart soaring. The dark cloud of doubt had lifted, and her path to returning to the restaurant was finally clear. She immediately called James, who shared her joy and confirmed that her role would be reinstated with full public acknowledgement of her innocence. The franchise would issue a formal statement to the community, and Claire's reputation would be restored. The day Claire returned to the restaurant, she was met with applause from her team. Sarah ran to hug her, and even some of the most skeptical employees offered her smiles and congratulations. Claire's heart swelled as she felt the support of those who had stood by her, even in the face of doubt. Later that day, she addressed her team and the customers who had gathered to welcome her back. "Thank you all for your support. It's been a difficult journey, but I'm grateful to be here again, ready to continue building a positive, honest environment with all of you." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Claire felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She knew there were still challenges ahead, but she was prepared to face them with resilience and integrity. Claire returned to the restaurant with renewed energy and an unshakable sense of purpose. With her name officially cleared and the support of her community growing stronger, she was ready to rebuild. She gathered the team for a meeting, wanting to address them directly. "Thank you all for standing by me during such a difficult time," Claire began, her voice steady. "I want this restaurant to be a place we're all proud of, a place where everyone is valued and respected. I'm grateful to have you all by my side, and I'm committed to making this restaurant the best it can be, for our team and our customers." The room erupted in applause, and Claire felt a wave of gratitude for her team's resilience and loyalty. With renewed determination, she dove into her work, introducing policies aimed at fostering transparency, fair treatment, and a more positive work environment. One of Claire's first initiatives was to enhance the restaurant's community outreach efforts. Inspired by the events she had organized before her suspension, Claire set up monthly community nights. These events featured affordable family meals, children's activities, and community-building games. She also established a local book drive, encouraging patrons to donate books that would go to schools in need. The community embraced these efforts with enthusiasm. Customers began to refer to the restaurant as a place of warmth and unity, where they felt valued and welcome. Claire knew that by focusing on community-driven initiatives, she was helping to rebuild the restaurant's reputation and strengthening the trust that had been damaged. Next, Claire turned her attention to building a stronger, more supportive workplace culture. She introduced an employee appreciation program, highlighting the efforts of team members who went above and beyond. Small tokens of gratitude like Employee of the Month certificates and gift cards became cherished prizes among the staff. More importantly, Claire instituted an anonymous suggestion system where employees could provide feedback without fear of retaliation. One day, as Claire was reviewing the anonymous feedback, she noticed suggestions for more flexible scheduling for team members who were balancing school and family commitments. She immediately began working on adjusting the schedules to provide more flexibility, especially for younger employees and parents. Her willingness to listen and respond to her team's needs fostered loyalty and respect among her staff, further strengthening the team's morale. Sarah, who had been one of Claire's most vocal supporters, approached her after the new schedule was implemented. "Claire, you've done so much to make this place better for everyone. We all feel like a team now, and it's thanks to you." Claire smiled, touched by Sarah's words. "Thank you, Sarah. It's all of us working together that makes the difference." Just as the restaurant seemed to be thriving, a crisis struck the community. A fire at a nearby apartment complex left several families displaced, and the town rallied to provide support. Claire immediately saw an opportunity for the restaurant to step up. She organized a charity night, where all proceeds from the day's sales would go to the families affected by the fire. In addition to contributing financially, Claire set up donation boxes in the restaurant for clothes, canned goods, and school supplies. Her team worked tirelessly to make the event a success, and the response was overwhelming. Customers from all over the town came to show their support, and the restaurant was packed all day. At the end of the night, Claire announced the total donations to the staff and customers who had volunteered to help. "Thanks to all of you, we've raised enough funds to make a real difference," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. The event earned widespread praise, with many community members expressing their gratitude to Claire and her team for their selfless actions. The restaurant's reputation as a place of kindness and integrity grew, and Claire felt an immense sense of pride and fulfillment. As the restaurant's success continued, the lingering effects of the previous financial issues still surfaced from time to time. Some patrons would occasionally bring up the investigation, doubting Claire's integrity despite her exoneration. Though the franchise had made public statements clearing her name, not everyone was fully convinced. One day, a customer approached Claire, bluntly questioning her about the investigation. "How do we know something like that won't happen again?" the customer asked, their tone wary. Claire met their gaze, her voice calm and sincere. "I understand your concerns, and I want you to know that we've put new financial transparency measures in place. I personally oversee the bookkeeping, and we have regular audits to ensure everything remains above board. I'm committed to running this restaurant with the highest level of integrity." Her honesty and openness reassured many, and customers gradually came to respect her for facing the issues head-on. Claire realized that her journey had taught her not only resilience, but the importance of standing firm in the face of criticism. She knew that her dedication to honesty would continue to strengthen the community's trust over time. A few weeks later, Claire received an unexpected call from the franchise's regional office. The representative on the other end, Barbara, informed Claire that her leadership had caught the attention of the corporate executives. "We're inspired by the way you turn things around, Claire," Barbara said warmly. "The community outreach, employee support programs, and your dedication to transparency. These are exactly the qualities we value." Claire was both honored and surprised. The representative went on to explain that the franchise was interested in promoting her story and potentially expanding her initiatives to other locations. They proposed a meeting with corporate leaders to discuss her work and the possibility of implementing similar programs across the region. Claire's heart raced at the thought. She had never imagined that her efforts would reach beyond her small community, and she knew this opportunity could inspire positive changes across many locations. Before the meeting with corporate leaders, Claire gathered her team to share the news and express her gratitude. "I couldn't have achieved any of this without each of you. You've helped create something special here, and I'm so proud of what we've built together," she told them. The team erupted in applause, and Sarah hugged Claire tightly. "You've inspired us all, Claire. You're exactly the kind of leader this place needed." Claire felt tears welling up. She knew that no matter what happened next, the support and loyalty of her team would remain her greatest achievement. The day of the meeting arrived, and Claire found herself in a sleek conference room surrounded by regional and national corporate leaders. She shared her story, detailing the journey from her suspension and the investigation to her renewed commitment to integrity, community involvement, and employee support. Her honesty and humility resonated with the executives, who listened intently. When she finished, the head of corporate relations, Mr. Grayson, spoke up. "Claire, your dedication and resilience have set an example for everyone in our organization. We'd like to work with you to implement these initiatives on a broader scale. We believe that what you've built here can inspire positive changes across our entire franchise network." Claire was thrilled but knew that taking on this role meant she'd have to leave her beloved restaurant behind. After a moment of consideration, she responded, "I'm deeply honored, but I'd like to propose that we turn my location into a pilot program. I'd be happy to oversee the project from here, ensuring its success and training other managers as needed." The executives exchanged glances, clearly impressed by her commitment. Mr. Grayson nodded with a smile. "We'd be thrilled to support this. We'll designate your restaurant as the model for our Integrity and Community initiative." With corporate backing, Claire's restaurant officially became a flagship for ethical leadership and community-focused practices. She implemented initiatives such as integrity training for employees, sustainable sourcing, and scholarships for team members pursuing further education. Local businesses reached out, inspired by her model, and Claire began collaborating with them to foster a network of socially responsible businesses. One afternoon, Claire was approached by a young customer who had followed her story online. "You're the reason I want to work here," the teenager said, their eyes bright with admiration. "I want to be part of something good." Hearing these words, Claire realized just how far her journey had come. She had turned a small restaurant into a force for positive change, touching the lives of her employees, her customers, and her entire community. To mark the success of the restaurant's transformation, Claire hosted a community appreciation night, inviting her team, customers, and local leaders to celebrate. Her mother, Ellen, and her daughter, Megan, joined her, both beaming with pride. As Claire looked around, seeing the faces of those she had worked so hard for, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Megan hugged her, whispering, "Mom, I'm so proud of you. You didn't just make a difference here. You showed me what true strength looks like." Tears pricked at Claire's eyes as she held her daughter close. She knew that, despite the hardships and the moments of doubt, her journey had given her something more valuable than any title or recognition. It had given her purpose and the chance to inspire others. As the first anniversary of Claire's return and the restaurant's transformation approached, the community buzzed with excitement. The anniversary celebration was planned as a day of gratitude, with special discounts, free meals for local charity organizations, and activities for children. Claire's team was equally excited, with each member taking pride in the role they played in creating a supportive, welcoming environment. On the day of the celebration, the restaurant filled with familiar faces. Longtime customers, local leaders, and even families who had benefited from the charity night gathered to show their support. Claire stood at the entrance, greeting each guest, her heart swelling with gratitude. Toward the end of the evening, James Monroe, the franchise owner, presented Claire with a plaque. The plaque read, "In recognition of your unwavering dedication, integrity, and compassion, thank you for making this restaurant a true home for our community." Applause filled the room and Claire felt tears in her eyes. She had come so far, and this recognition felt like a tangible reminder of her journey and all that she had overcome. As Claire's restaurant gained fame as the flagship for ethical and community-driven business practices, other locations began reaching out to her for advice. Inspired by her success, franchise owners from nearby cities invited her to lead workshops on ethical leadership, transparency, and team building. Claire found herself traveling to these locations, working with other managers to implement similar programs and community events. She guided them in setting up suggestion boxes, organizing charity nights, and fostering a sense of unity among their teams. Each visit strengthened her conviction that her journey had a larger purpose, and she embraced the role of mentor and advisor. One day, a young manager, Rebecca, approached Claire after a workshop. "Claire, your story and dedication have inspired me to lead with heart. I didn't realize how much of a difference we could make," she said, her voice filled with admiration. Claire smiled, moved by Rebecca's words. "It's not easy, but when you lead with integrity, people see it. And that makes it all worthwhile." Months later, Claire received a phone call that she would never forget. A producer from a national news program, Inspirational Leaders Today, reached out to her. They had heard about her story and wanted to feature her in a segment highlighting people who had made a positive impact in their communities. Stunned, Claire agreed to the interview, and a few weeks later, a camera crew arrived at her restaurant. The interviewer, a respected journalist, asked Claire about her journey, about the challenges she faced, the values she upheld, and the transformation she led. "Claire, you've turned this restaurant into a place of hope and integrity," the interviewer said. "What do you hope others take away from your story?" Claire thought carefully before answering, her voice steady. "I hope they see that kindness and honesty are powerful tools, no matter the industry. I want people to know that they can make a difference by leading with heart and by choosing to do what's right, even when it's hard." The segment aired nationally, and the response was overwhelming. Claire received letters and messages from people all over the country, thanking her for sharing her story and for reminding them of the importance of values in business. Her impact had grown beyond her community, inspiring a movement toward ethical business practices nationwide. Back at her own restaurant, Claire noticed that her team members had begun stepping into leadership roles of their own. Sarah, who had always been a source of support for Claire, was now mentoring new employees, teaching them the importance of integrity and hard work. Claire saw in Sarah the same dedication she had once nurtured in herself, and it filled her with pride. One evening, Sarah approached Claire with a smile. "Claire, I wanted to thank you. Working here, seeing your leadership, it's changed my life. I never thought a job could feel like family, but you've shown us what that looks like." Claire hugged Sarah, deeply touched. "Thank you, Sarah. Knowing that you're here, carrying on these values, is the greatest reward I could ask for." Claire saw her influence extend through her team, and it became clear that her legacy would live on in the way they treated each other and served their community. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, Claire invited her mother, Ellen, and her daughter, Megan, to lunch at the restaurant. They sat together at a corner table reminiscing about the past and reflecting on how far they had come. Megan looked up at her mother, admiration shining in her eyes. "Mom, I've watched you overcome so much. You've taught me that no matter what happens, you can make a difference by staying true to yourself." Claire felt a lump in her throat. "Thank you, honey. I wanted you to see that integrity isn't just something you talk about. It's something you live." Her mother, Ellen, reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Claire, you've not only changed this restaurant, you've shown all of us what true strength and resilience look like." I couldn't be prouder. For Claire, this was the most meaningful moment of all. Her family's pride and support had been her foundation through the darkest times, and she knew that everything she had done was for them. A few days after the family lunch, Claire sat alone in the restaurant, watching as her team prepared for the day's work. The early morning sunlight cast a warm glow over the space, and she felt a profound sense of peace. Claire's journey had been filled with challenges, but each one had strengthened her resolve and deepened her understanding of what it meant to be a leader. She had learned that integrity wasn't just a principle. It was a way of life that could inspire and uplift those around her. As she looked around, Claire knew that her journey was far from over. There would always be new challenges, new people to mentor, and new ways to serve her community. And she was ready, knowing that every step she took would be grounded in the values that had brought her to this point. On the restaurant's second anniversary of change, Claire organized a special celebration to honor her team and the community that had supported her through every obstacle. During the event, James Monroe presented her with a new plaque, this one engraved with the words, "For Claire Thompson, a legacy of integrity and kindness." As she held the plaque, Claire addressed the gathering, her voice filled with gratitude. "I want to thank each of you for being part of this journey. This restaurant isn't just mine, it's ours. Together we've created a place of kindness, respect, and hope. I hope that our story inspires others to believe in the power of doing what's right." The crowd erupted in applause, and Claire looked out over the sea of faces, filled with appreciation and joy. She knew that her story had touched lives, and the values she had upheld would continue to guide her team, her community, and others inspired by her journey. As the evening wound down and the last of the guests left, Claire took a moment to stand outside, gazing up at the restaurant's sign. She felt a deep sense of peace and accomplishment. Her trials and triumphs had led her here, to a place where she could make a real difference. Claire knew that her story was now woven into the fabric of her community, and as she walked back inside, she felt ready to face whatever the future held, knowing that her legacy of integrity would endure. To stay updated on stories that inspire resilience, integrity, and positive change, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss the next journey of hope and transformation. Join us for more heartfelt stories that remind us all of the power of doing what's right. Subscribe now and be part of the story.